Well, this here has to be the best takedown of the net zero green energy con job I've heard someone get out in front of the powers that be, and it actually comes from a green energy supporter. Yeah, I was a bit shocked myself, but this admitted environmentalist and supporter of green energy takes down Colchester Council's so-called green policy with some cold hard facts they can't even argue against.
Good evening. I've been a supporter of green energy and a keen environmentalist since my 20s. My office is solar powered, so I was mortified to discover that a single lithium mine causes millions of tonnes of waste every year laced with sulfuric acid and radioactive uranium, polluting the water supply for 300 years, not to mention the unacceptable human costs with child labour to mine cobalt. When I researched which solar panel to purchase, I did not for 1 minute consider it would be made by people trapped in razor wire enclosed labour camps, being exposed to large quantities of quartz dust which causes silicosis. Please note that the Ethical Consumer Organisation report that it is hard to avoid forced labour in the solar panel supply chain. Wind turbines, which last about 20 years, consume a colossal amount of resources and energy to manufacture and install, not to mention the blight and bird kill. They require diesel engines to start them up and then gallons of oil to lubricate, and they can't readily be recycled. Solar panels are also extremely difficult to recycle, costing more than the production of the panel. And lithium batteries pose steep challenges too. Add to that the human suffering, which we've all unwittingly been part of just by owning a laptop or mobile phone, which is minimal compared to what's required for an EV or solar farm. These so-called green or ethical solutions aren't solutions at all. Just very good marketing from the $1.5 trillion a year climate change industry. That's $4 billion a day, by the way. None of us can undo what's already been done, but what we can all do is make sure this doesn't escalate exponentially with fleets of unnecessary EVs and acres of solar farms eating up our precious farmland. It would be helpful if anyone would actually define what they mean by green. If they mean better in all respects, which is a reasonable suggestion, then in retrospect we can clearly see that the current offerings are not really better than our existing energy solutions, and in many regards much worse. And this is why I am here today. I am providing you with the knowledge that many of these well-intentioned projects that you are keen to pursue are actually harmful, and as such must be halted and then either properly investigated or more simply and less costly dropped altogether. After all, your own code of conduct obligates you to act and take decisions impartially, fairly and on merit, using the best evidence and without discrimination or bias, and you are specifically required not to misuse council resources.
Ah yes, the dirty little secrets of the green energy tribe that I already knew about, and I bet so did all of you. I mean, the information's hardly hidden, but the scumbags involved prey on the ignorance of people to keep pushing green energy even if it costs them more money. They know most people don't look past their own noses, as the pandemic showed us, and so will net zero when that really ramps up with private car bans, 15-minute cities and climate lockdowns, of course. Like with people who paid for solar panels thinking they're green, most people don't realise that green energy is more polluting than legacy energy production because they don't bother to look. Green electric cars require more minerals and pollution to make than a normal car does to produce and use for its lifespan, and like solar panels are not worth recycling. Of course, this won't matter as the climate con must go on because remember, they don't follow the science.
You know, we own the science and we think that the world should know it.
Now, following on from that first clip, we actually have a second one here that features another resident tearing council staff a new arsehole with more cold hard facts of life.
Council must evidence their climate data and their claim of a man-made climate emergency. Most people don't know the full extent of the net zero plans. Few have read the Absolute Zero and IPCC reports and are blissfully ignorant of how much our lives will radically change if recommendations go ahead. A few examples from these reports. By 2030, UK airports close except Heathrow, Glasgow and Belfast, which close by 2050. By 2030, 50% less lamb and beef production. Had you noticed we're being conditioned to eat insects? Fossil fuels completely phased out by 2050, but don't worry, You'll have a rather generous 3-item clothing allowance per year. And so it goes on. France has already banned internal flights where rail alternatives exist. If you expect the public to willingly go along with losing our entire way of life, our livelihoods and our freedom, then you absolutely must conclusively prove it's necessary. Anything else is insane. Not just cherry-picked data the IPCC put out, full chart data showing everything, including the inconvenient ice core sample data which shows CO2 levels over 5 times greater than they are now, with much higher global temperatures with no detriment to the planet. This is referred to as a dissenting opinion. I'm not a climate change denier. I can conclusively confirm from the empirical data that climate change does exist. I'm pretty sure I was taught that at school. The onus is on council to prove these effects are man-made. Phasing out petrol and diesel will restrict the people's freedom to travel. Can council confirm the constitutional basis by which either they or central government may act in any of these respects? It seems that the servant seeks to control the master. Can you evidence that council may? Thank you.
Oh yeah, she eviscerated them with that, while also pointing out just how the net zero madness will go, which many people don't know about, as I said before. These are the literal plans of scumbags that you had no say in making, but are expected to pay for and be ruled by because they want control. This has nothing to do with the climate that, as you heard and already knew, changes over time regardless of what we do. People must remember that we're like ants to the planet, so thinking we can really affect it like that is incredible delusions of grandeur and nothing more. This is why they can never prove it, and every prediction they make out turns out to be guess what, bollocks. That explains why the climate officer couldn't answer to any of her points as you see here.
Yeah, there was an awful lot there which I can actually note down all the questions for. So I think it will be easier if we just write a written response to all the things that you raised.
Could we have a timescale on that? Because obviously it doesn't seem to be urgent from council's perspective.
So if I may, I'd like to make a commitment that you will have a form of response within 7 working days. It may not be a full response, but I'd like to give you our assurances that we will not let this matter drop and you will receive a response.
Yeah, I would say these women absolutely annihilated the council hacks who can't even defend the agenda they're pushing, but the local residents did say a lot more, so I'll link the full video down below for anyone who wants to watch it. Now, thankfully, this net zero agenda appears to be tearing at the seams because the public are slowly waking up to it and pushing back. This we've actually seen with recent elections in Europe, including Germany last night. There, an anti-net zero party actually won local elections with polls saying they could beat the incumbent scumbags for power, so we can fight back against it. We just need more people to wake up first.
What do you want? When do you want it?
Pandemic.